Welcome to Special Edition Sandwich. I am Dave Sampson, one of your sandwich selectmen. Here today with Jay McGrail, chairman of our school committee, also Jonathan Nelson, head of buildings and grounds for the Sandwich School Department. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. The reason that we're here, as some of you may already be aware, we have a special town meeting coming up on November 21st, 7 p.m. at Sandwich High School. One of the primary drivers for that meeting is an HVAC failure that we've recently had at the high school. Been discussed a little bit in the newspaper. I think a lot of folks have been distracted with other political and election activities, but now that those are over, we're looking towards a special town meeting coming up soon. So thanks for being here today, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. Thanks for having us. I really appreciate that you take the time out of your day to do this with us and that you have the interest in helping the schools to figure out this problem. Thanks a lot.
No, of course, and I think the opportunity we have today is to give people a good foundation to come to town meeting in a couple weeks and understand what we're talking about. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of their questions prior to the event, and hopefully
Absolutely.
Folks will be there because we like participation. It's
Thanksgiving
all about
week,
participation.
it's important we get a turnout, that's for sure.
So the Article 1 on the special town meeting warrant, for folks that haven't already seen it, is for the capital appropriation of funds for SHS HVAC system. Why don't you guys give us just a little bit of background about what's happening with the HVAC system at the high school?
Okay,
How do we
great.
get to where we are?
Yeah, I'll be happy to give you a little bit of background, and then I'll defer to Jonathan on the technical aspects of what's going on with our very intricate and complicated chiller system up there. So last year, Jonathan started in July. He's a new employee to the district, and we're really glad to have him.
Welcome.
He comes from Bourne.
And the product that I've seen from Jonathan thus far, and just his few months of being with us, has been excellent.
We're very, very happy
So
to have
we
him.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we're very happy to have the detail that he's bringing to the job, and we threw him right into the fire for sure on day one. The first thing he had to do as an employee of the district was figure out a temporary chiller situation because we knew ours were in critical failure, and we had no air conditioning at the high school, and we were looking at kids coming back to school at the end of August, beginning of September, with extreme heat in the buildings. And those buildings weren't designed, without air conditioning. They weren't designed with windows. A lot of the classrooms are interior classrooms, and the temperatures get, really to a point where teaching and learning would be a real issue in the buildings.
Yeah. And I think you're really speaking towards the question of, do we need to have air conditioning
at
the high school? And I graduated from Sandwich High School in 1995. I learned in a number of those classrooms, so I understand what you're talking about. A lot of those classrooms are effectively landlocked.
They don't have windows. Yeah, they don't have windows.
And I think it's important to note that the chiller system was built with a 2000 edition. It was the town at the time must have wanted to have a central cooling system for the high school, and based on the design when they did the work in 2000, that really drove the need for the central cooling in the high school. So.
Yeah.
So we keep talking about chiller failure and chiller system. What's a chiller? I know, but I'm going to pretend like I don't.
So a chiller is really the central piece of machinery that makes cooling. It makes what's called chilled water. It cools the existing water system. We have a chilled water plant that runs through the building, provides water to coils and air handlers on top of the roof and throughout various what are called fan coils throughout the building to cool the space. So the chiller is really a large multi-compressor piece of equipment that does all the heat transfer for refrigeration. And that refrigeration, the heat is removed from the building water, the chill water, and that heat's removed and cooled in the chiller itself. So that's the chiller is the main driver behind the cooling system for the high school.
So it would be fair to say that there is a water loop that goes through the school building. That water circulates via pumps through all of the cooling units inside the school building. When the water passes through, the heat is transferred to that water. Then it goes outside, it gets cooled down again, and the process starts all over. And that's how we remove heat to create air conditioning.
Exactly.
That was my layman's
Exactly. That's a perfect
explanation.
way. That's a
It's
perfect.
pretty
way.
good explanation, though.
So, okay, great.
Yeah.
So the unit that does that cooling of the water, that's what's broken. That's
Yeah.
why we can't create cool air.
That is correct.
So we had two units. So the original system was designed for redundancy. 16. What was it? What was the year it was originally put in?
The chillers were built in 1999 and I think operational by 2000.
And I think that may have even been a repower of a previous system.
It very well might have. I have not. All the documentation I have just talks about that 2000
Yeah.
system.
My foggy memory on that says that there were always cooling towers in that same general
I-
vicinity. So,
Prior to that, there were absorption chiller over there. Yes, you were correct with that.
and did we, and not to interrupt you for
Yep.
a moment, Jay, but the lifespan of these units,
The average lifespan, the Society of the ASHRAE, it's Heating and Ventilation, the Heating and Ventilation Engineering Society, the recommended lifespan is 20 years. And a lot of industry documentation probably puts that window in the 15 to 20-year range. Sometimes people will extend the life of them from 20 to 25 years, but 20 years is about the average.
okay.
So one thing that's really important to understand is that we were originally designed with the redundancy of 2 chillers. We've had critical failure in both of those chillers over the last 10 years at the Sandwich High School. Currently, we've operated for the last number of years just on one of the chillers. The other one had been out of commission for the last 4 or 5 years. And we've been able to get by with that one chiller. So we're looking to, rather than put in 2 brand new chillers, we're looking to replace the 2 chiller system with one chiller that can handle our load and what we need and our needs at the Sandwich High School. We're not looking for perfectly cooled buildings in July when our buildings are 99% empty. We're looking for cooled buildings in the temperature range that we need to be able to produce, to be able to have that teaching and learning happen in September, so that students and teachers are comfortable for those handful of days in September and June and May when those temperatures are, really soaring.
So we're not overbuilding
No,
the
no.
capacity of the system, but I think one of the other things that's important to that point that John and I have talked about previously is that we would actually have the opportunity for those summer months and then maybe those higher load days to segment the internal systems, take advantage of the capacity we do have to make the areas where we do need cooling,
Right,
where they need to be.
That is correct. That's correct. We have 2. The chiller that we're replacing is a 400-ton chiller. We're recommending to put a little bit larger chiller back, like in the 450-ton range, just because there's been some, the chillers have a lot of different efficiency things where we're trying to get that full 400-ton chilling. However, the chiller will be designed to really run during the shoulder seasons, which is when it's needed. That the heat load we probably use the chiller starting in early April, all the way up through the end of June, and then in September and October are the months that the chiller is in main use at the high school while there are kids in the building. During the summer months, is when the high peak demand days come for heat load in the building. We'll end up turning off units and just isolating the parts of the school that are functioning during the summer and those high heat days.
I think it's important to understand that we were given a presentation or given a plan by an engineer that presented an option that was for optimum cooling for year-round. And we sat back and said, that was $1 million price tag for that
I recall that.
situation that was presented to us, that chiller situation. And we sat back, and John really had to explain it to me, because at first I thought that's what we would need if that's what the engineer's saying. But John looked at it in a different way and said, although that's optimum cooling for this facility, that doesn't take into account our operational needs and what we really need as a district, and he really thought outside the box of what we need and when we need it. Not optimal, not the Cadillac plan, what we need and what our operations dictate. So, that makes me a lot more comfortable with understanding the direction that he wants us to go in and why we can get by with the one chiller where before we had the 2.
So the good news on this, it's not $1 million plan.
It's not a $1
but
million
like
plan.
all the proposals that show up on my desk, I usually move right to the back page and say, what does this cost?
Yep.
And what does this plan look like from a cost perspective?
So we hired BLW engineers to look at to do the analysis on the estimates for market value and everything. And the total project cost is about they've estimated to be $623,000. With about 120 of that fixing some issues that they've noticed with pipe work and a few other items from the original construction that certain things weren't built to the correct recommended methods at the time. So the total replacement really for that unit is in the ballpark of $500,000, but the actual job that we're looking to do is $623,000.
And from my perspective, you can please tell me if I'm wrong, but those corrections in some of those pieces you just mentioned about things not being built necessarily the way they were recommended, those improvements are going to result in controls that really lead to longer term efficiency and better utilization of the system.
100%
Because we're
correct.
going to have basically better levers to pull to control what's happening with that HVAC system at the high school.
And it's also, it's gonna make it more efficient and put less load on the chiller, which is going to help extend that life as much as we can get out of it.
And reduce energy costs.
That's exactly right.
Excellent.
And one thing that's really important to us that we've realized throughout this process and working with the engineers, the importance of this year-long annual maintenance that we need to do to get that guaranteed 20 to 25 years out of these pieces of equipment. So it may not be that, you know, it's $3,000 a year for every year. There may be a point down the road where in 10 years we need to make a substantial investment to be able to get to that 25-year number. But, you know, we've identified definitely that as a real importance of us, and that's something that we're going to fund through our operating budget is maintenance of this important pieces of equipment so that we can get the most life out of it.
So basically, follow the dealer recommended service plan of the 20, 30, 40, 50,000 mile maintenance.
Exactly.
So that we can get the longevity
Yeah,
of the system.
and when we have to make significant capital repairs, not ignore that, identify that, and follow through on it.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly something that's been a challenge
Yeah.
over time, is making the commitment to those long-term capital investments. Back to the plans, we're talking about $625,000 about, you know, where does the funding come from? I think there are some interesting pieces to this with the insurance piece, but I'm gonna let you
There are,
guys go
yeah.
ahead and
So,
explain that.
the main thing to get across to the people listening at home and watching this is that at the end of the day, we found ways to fund this without it affecting your tax bill. So that's a really important thing for the taxpayers of Sandwich to understand is, although this is a big price tag, a $600,000 job, you know, we've been able to be creative in working with our town manager, Bud Dunham, and come up with a way to fund this without it affecting your tax bill, without an increase in your taxes, without any capital, expenditure made or debt exclusion. And it's what we've done is looked at insurance right off the bat. We filed a claim with our insurance company, and John worked really hard at putting that together. And
And it turns out we have a special part of our insurance policy that covers just this type of event.
Yeah,
Which
it
is
covers
unique.
boiler and machinery. It's a boiler and machinery clause.
Okay.
Yeah, so we started off with insurance and tried to figure out what our best course of action with the insurance company was. We're down to the wire with them, trying to get a final answer from them before town meeting. But they've identified a couple of different scenarios that they're looking at funding for us. So we're trying to figure out the final number from them. And then what we've done on top of that is look at a variety of different funding options that we currently have in place in the FY17 town budget currently that we can repurpose towards this and make this a priority. You know, there was some Chapter 70 money that came in that we can reappropriate towards this and, that type of thing, so that we were able to get creative and figure out a way to repurpose funds to put towards this project.
Now, I know that in the fall, to make sure that we had the right learning environment for students, we had to bring in some temporary chiller capacity, which was parked in that big tractor trailer behind the high school. Some folks may have seen that. Assuming that, things go well at town meeting in a couple of weeks, which I expect that they will, what do the timelines look like to make stuff happen for this?
John?
So the biggest thing that the biggest lead item with this project is the actual chiller itself. It's about a 12-week lead on that, on
For them to
receiving.
physically build it.
So, yep, from ordering to receiving at your site. So the biggest issue we need to do is we need to really go out to bid for this project, really no later than just January 1st and at the latest January 15th. But we really need to go out to bid early January to go through the Chapter 149 procurement process and have the proper time for the bidders and the sub-bidders to put together their bids and award a contract. It takes probably up to 2 months to go through that process. That way we'll have something in place, hopefully no later. The idea would be to have a goal contract in place no later than the end of February, and just try to push for a quick turnaround on a chiller. So.
Thus the importance of the fall town meeting. If we waited till the spring town meeting, we'd be way behind the gun and we wouldn't be able to get it done for May and June of next year. We'd be looking at a rental situation again.
Which is very expensive.
Oh, unbelievable expensive. I mean, I guess when you're looking at a school that size, it's not, you'd expect it to be expensive, but
It's
the
about
numbers are.
$1,000 a day,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah.
And
$1,000
did the
a day.
insurance play into covering those costs at all?
So the only indication we've received is that those costs that out of the insurance company, the only thing we've received is that those costs will be covered by the insurance company. Outside of that, we haven't heard anything else, so.
So one of the things I think people think about, we're talking about a challenge with building maintenance in one of our school buildings, which is probably of general concern. I think there's a lot of thought in the town that the town doesn't take care of buildings in general, which I personally disagree with. Since I was elected, I've spent a lot of time in a number of our town buildings, and I think they're better taken care of than people realize many times. But I think that with the school side being separated from the municipal side, that has been more of a challenge on the school side than the municipal side. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I do think that one of the things we need to focus on as a community is, how do we get to a better place for school improvement? And I think that for some of the taxpayers that are watching today that maybe weren't watching as closely in previous times, whether it's earlier this year or before, this might be a curveball for them. Geez, why does the high school suddenly need this large unit? Nobody took care of it. So how do we kind of look at the bigger picture and make improvements over time? And I think that one of the exciting things for me is that, over the summer, when this first started to be a challenge for the school department, I think it was early in August, Jay and I got involved in a social media conversation / email thread, and within probably 2 hours, I had a multi-page report from John that detailed this entire situation to the point that I almost had no questions, which is remarkable, very impressive, because I'm very demanding when it comes to written reports, and you did a phenomenal job. So I think that, perhaps this is a time to look at the bigger picture. I know you are doing that, but I want to give you the opportunity to let people know.
So I think absolutely positively we need to do a better job at maintenance of our facilities. I think there's no question about that, and it's something we need to focus on moving forward. I think one thing that's happened over the last number of years is we've gotten really good at using duct tape to fix things, basically. And some of that's been because we've been trying to protect the taxpayers of Sandwich. We've done our best to be able to put things back together and make it work. And we've efficiently done that. What we need to do a better job of is identifying our annual capital needs, and not just capital, but maintenance needs, and saying out front, to be able to get the 25 years out of things and not the 15 years out of things. These are the costs that we have on an annual basis. Let everyone know that up front, and then identify how we're going to take that pool of money that we're talking about spending on maintenance and how we're going to spend every dollar of that. What exactly are we going to do to that chiller? How often are we going to be painting the hallways at Forestdale? When are we going to replace carpets at Oak Ridge? Be very specific about, this is how much money we need for maintenance to be able to do a better job of maintaining our facilities on an annual basis, and how exactly are we going to spend that money? And that's what John's been working on lately.
I think the biggest thing is communication, putting together a written plan, communicating it, having discussions as a community. I think it's having that documented and worked on together through the various processes in town, the various boards. That's the big bonus to the town, I think. And I think that gives people a sense of being involved in the process, but also understanding the needs. I don't think there's a full understanding of what the needs are in the schools right now.
Yeah, and I do think that with some of the workshop sessions that we've had, joint sessions with the Board of Selectmen this year, that's certainly a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
So hopefully that, is a really great way to start creating bigger understanding of what some of these challenges are. How do we tackle them? I mean, the challenge always is, we want to spend the dollars on educating our children and putting them in the best place.
Yeah.
But the learning environment is a challenge as well, right? We need to make sure the learning environment is also fitting the best needs of the students. Otherwise, later on, it's going to come back to bite us.
Yeah, and the challenge has been, in the past, we're so focused on expanding our programming and offering the most robust program that we possibly can in the Sandwich School District, that it's hard to be able to allocate the funds needed to be able to do this. But it's clearly become something we have to focus on. And from the school administration to the school committee, I think we're all committed to it.
Yeah, and I think certainly an exciting time for Sandwich Public Schools. We have new leadership in place, not just in John, but obviously with the new school superintendent here. You've new chairman of the school committee, so there's a lot of pieces happening. So
yeah, it's exciting. We're working well together.
And I know that there's a lot of folks that are putting a lot of time and dedication into making sure that we're the best that we can be.
Thank you. I agree. We're working well together, and it's fun. I think we're doing a good job.
Yep.
We're representing the town of Sandwich well.
Well, we appreciate your service very much, both of you.
Thank you. You too.
Of course. That's why we're here, right? Anything else that you guys would like to add about this particular issue?
Just last, I wanted to mention, I haven't received a lot of feedback of we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of, we don't have air conditioning at Forestdale and Oak Ridge, and we do it at the high school, and what is the difference? How come those teachers are suffering when it's 95 degrees in September? And the main difference, as we discussed earlier, is the lack of air, the lack of windows at the high school. There's so many of those rooms that are internal rooms that don't have windows and have no other cooling source. I mean, although when it's 95 degrees in September and you open the window, you don't get a lot of relief. At least it's an option. When you have no option whatsoever, like you do in a number of those classrooms at the high school, that building was designed for air conditioning. Forestdale and Oak Ridge were not.
Especially the original part of the building.
Correct.
More so than
Yeah,
the A-wing.
The
right?
A-wing, yep.
In my recollection from early 90s when I was in those classrooms is that there were a lot of classrooms that really were more of a triangular shape that had opening and closing walls, and not all classrooms, but some classrooms had a small crank-out window in the corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things haven't changed a lot, so.
No, and it's just, it's important, it was the way the building was designed, it's the original intent of the design. I think it's important to note that town meeting approved these projects in the past, and this is to me just a continuation of that. It's if without it, I don't think we're doing the proper job for our kids in the district, so.
But I do feel bad for those teachers in Forestdale and Oak Ridge when it's 95.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately,
I
those
feel
days
for
are
that.
few.
Yeah,
and
that's
the-
true.
and
They're
the-
very
And the
few.
windows are open, so,
Yeah.
one of the
Lot more
advantages
windows.
of us living here on
And-
Cape Cod, except for maybe this past summer, is that usually we do pretty well on weather.
And those teachers are so passionate and driven, they're bringing fans from home to cool the kids.
Hey, we do what we have to do sometimes,
right.
I guess.
We certainly do.
This particular building, and based on my own experience and spending 4 years in high school there, I mean, I understand where the need is, and my best recollection is that it was not like the Arctic in there, but it was kept at a comfortable temperature, and that's
Yeah.
really what the goal is.
Well, what was the temperature we're looking to be able to obtain?
We were looking at about between 72 and 76, so efficient, not,
Yeah,
that's
we're
a-
certainly not running the Arctic up there,
Right, and the heat load in the building, adding those students to those classrooms, obviously bodies generate heat, more
Yeah.
bodies, more heat, more
Well,
capacity, we need to take the heat out of the building.
And it's bodies and technology. Our technology
Yeah, that's
program's
true.
expanded tremendously, and there's a lot of technology in the classrooms that add to that heat load, so.
It's true.
Yeah, that is true. Okay,
Thank you very much.
of course.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
doing
much for your
this.
time,
I
Jay,
appreciate it.
John.
Thank you.
Great to see you guys always. Just want to reiterate, special town meeting is at Sandwich High School on November 21st, 7 p.m. Please attend. The biggest thing I ask folks all the time is to please participate, please show up. It's the best way to get involved in the process. You really do have the most opportunity to participate at the local government level, which is one of the reasons why I am your selectman in Sandwich, one of your selectmen. Any questions that you have, Jay is certainly available to answer those. Feel free to shoot him an email. His email address is jmcgrail, JMCGRAIL, at sandwich.k12.ma.us.
Please reach out with any
And
questions.
he'd be happy to get back in touch with you. I think many of you know that I am certainly always available. You can email me, dave@davesampson.com, or give me a call, 508-776-8565. Hope to see you soon at a selectmen's meeting or at special town meeting on November 21st, 7 p.m. at Sandwich High School. Thank you very much for joining us.